Good morning. This is Angela with today's cup of tea. So we go further and further on our journey. We continue to do the work. We continue to work on that path to enlightenment, to go to the mountain, to Earth 2.0, as I call it. And there are things that there are plateaus, there are points that we hit where there's a big lesson for us to proceed on to the next step. And one of the big ones that's happening more and more is how we step in and allow the ego to step in and take over our opinions and take over our reactions to certain situations, because the ego then perceives just what is around it in that moment and says, I don't like this. And it starts judging based on its experiences. It starts creating negative anxieties and fears and anger and all that kind of stuff. That all comes from the ego. And it goes back to how I have talked about so many times. The ego is many times spiritually like the pawn on a playing board, and the higher self is the player that can see the whole board. So the pawn can see what's in front of it, behind it, and around it, but the player, the higher self, can see the whole game. And we forget that. And so we've got these agreements in place that we're going to let in this density the ego to jump in and say, oh, well, no, we're going to react this way. Instead of coming from the heart, coming from the higher self and saying, how can we do this better? How can we resolve this? What do we have to heal and release for this to change within our reality? Because that's essentially where we get. And what I'm talking about is, especially, I see many people who work in the spiritual world doing the same kind of things that I do, and have very, developed beliefs, developed understandings, and yet they get into a situation where the ego then jumps in and takes over, and you never know it. And they are just as judgmental and hateful and angry as many the others that are not as supposedly, open and developed. So I have a great example of that. I live in North Carolina, in the United States, and this week we had our primary elections. And on our ballots, there was for us to vote for or against an amendment to our state constitution. That the amendment actually stated that the only union that would be acknowledged in the state would be a marriage between a man and a woman, essentially in a church. It was basically against civil unions, all that other kind of stuff. And it was really, what happened was there were because of the mix of the population, and this was traditionally conservative state, it's becoming much more progressive because of those who are moving in with a wider spiritual viewpoint, for those who are also doing so much more spiritual work and really opening themselves up and becoming more understanding and accepting. And what happened was, because in the non-urban areas, people voted for it. In the urban areas all across the state, which is where all those have moved in from, who are very active in the progression and in acceptance and stuff, it was voted against. We voted against it. But overall, over the state, those who voted for it actually overtook those who voted against it, and so they are going to be adding it to our state constitution. Well, so it boiled down to, even though it was much more than that, it boiled down to whether, like many people called it, the homosexual marriage thing, that it was all about that. And it really wasn't just about that, it was about other things. But that brought up these core issues with many, and it became this debate, this very bipolar belief of for or against. And what happened was, when those who were against the amendment lost, it's perceived that we lost, and we lost, the stand against it. Many who are very big on advocating, acceptance and everything else, and human rights basically is what it's all about. Is that we have all have equal rights as humans. That people got so incensed because of that. Oh, well, look at all this bigotry and hatred and everything else. When in essence, I believe that a lot of people just didn't understand what it was about, or they were just really complacent and figured, oh, somebody else will take care of it. there were only 30% of the voters statewide that showed up. But many people just sort of forgot that because their ego jumped right in and said, whoa, they're wrong and we're right. And they're mean and they're ugly and rude and stupid. And I just have seen such a slew of things and atrocities all through, like, say, Facebook and on the web, of people just like slamming others, and even people who I know who are supposed to be very spiritual and very developed. And I'm like, well, where does this come from? Why would we want to do it the way it's always been done? Because that always gets us the same results. Have you ever heard that saying that the definition of insanity is doing things the same way you've always done them and expecting different results? It's the same thing. We are working to evolve. We're working to get to the next level. And to do that, we need to release this egoic, negative behavior and let the higher self come in instead and say, okay, why, again, like I said in the beginning, why is this here? Why has this come to our collective reality here in North Carolina? How is it reflecting ourselves back to us? And what do we need to release and heal so that we can get rid of it and eliminate it altogether and really be able to then just come from love and still come from love, and without letting the ego say they're wrong, they're the ones who did this to us, they. There's no they, it's all me. You are me. We're all the same. We're all part of one, and you are a reflection of me. So if that happens in the reality, then the question is, where is it within myself? Where is it within the collective that we need to heal and release so that we can release this limitation, this environment of the allowance of taking away, of somebody allowing somebody else to take away rights. Because that's essentially what we do at the higher levels. It is all us. So the key is to step back and to notice, to step back and let the higher self look at it and see it and feel what's going on and say, what is it we need to heal? Why are we so angry? Many, many, many times. And this in North Carolina, especially because of slavery, because of even before that, I understood the Europeans coming and taking the land away from the Indians, and some of the atrocities that happened through that. That is all part of the energy of this land that we have never really fully released. We did that, and then the slavery on top of it, and the slavery energy is still pretty heavy in North Carolina. So all we can do is constantly clear the timelines, clear the history, but there's still that energy, so it's time for us to heal that. It's time for us to release that and finalize the lessons that we wanted to finalize from that, because all we're doing is repackaging it in different ways. And there is collective in North Carolina, there's collective in the United States, there's collective in the world. There's so many different levels of collective consciousness, and it's time for us to heal all that. So instead of reacting and letting the ego keep us down in those lower vibrations, it's time for us to raise our vibration. Because here's the thing, if we allow the higher self to come in and we act from love, we act from the heart instead of from the ego, then we can see what the highest and best solution is. What is the highest and best path for us? Or let me trust that I'm going to understand what the highest and best path is moving forward. Is it moving to a place that has different energy? Maybe. But essentially, Earth is our own. Earth is us, and we're at this point of clearing all this stuff out from all over. I mean, it's not even North Carolina. Look at like the Middle East and everything that goes on there. So what is it to clear? How do we clear this? How do we work on this? And the best answer I can always give people is to work on yourself. Work on staying in calm and peace and love and serenity. And I always talk about, a bazillion times I've talked about how important it is for us to be the calm in the storm. I've been told that by my guides, I've been told that by Creator, my higher self, a bazillion times. Stay the calm in the storm. And that's what's meant by that, because there's so much changing in our world around us today. The energies are changing. There's so many things that are falling away that don't serve us. And so there's this drastic change going on. And we are getting used to not having any rug under our feet or just being on a magic carpet right altogether. And so the key is to be comfortable in the fact that we don't need to have that ground solid underneath us, that everything is changing constantly, and to be comfortable in the change. And to understand and know that we are eternal beings, that we are in love. We are love and unconditional love, and we are part of the divine. We are the divine, and we are eternal. So therefore, this is all illusion. So this is going to come and go, It's part of the experience. And so the more and more we can get ingrained in that and accept that and say, how do we tweak this so that it's a better experience for us, or a happier, or one with more grace and ease and balance and harmony and joy and all that. That's the key. So a lot of food for thought. Many people just don't realize that. It's such a quick switch for us to get into that mode. When you start debating with somebody, to get into that emotional mode. And when you get emotional, that means the ego stepped in. So for the clearing for today, it has to do with clearing our agreements that we would allow the ego to do that. That for emergency, immediate, for heated, and immediate situations, that the ego would be allowed to step in and take over our reactions on this physical realm. So would you like all the following without trauma, drama, or illness, without creating or recreating any negative situations for illustration or experience, and all with ease, grace, balance, harmony, joy, fun, excitement, adventure, humor, love, and bliss? Would you like it for all versions of you, all times, all places, into the ever-expanding universe, to infinity and beyond? Would you like to receive all information requested in this download and these downloads and healings and clearings to come via instantaneous and comprehensive download with fully conscious understanding in the version, timeline, and place from which it is requested? Would you like all of Creator's truths and understandings, perceptions, perspectives, discernments, and definitions that come through via this clearing and healing to replace your own and become your own for divine alignment? And also, would you like to offer all of these clearings and healings to the higher selves of all ancestors and descendants, their version, if they so choose to accept? Whew. So on that too, then would you like to dissolve, resolve, release, and clear all etheric binding agreements that require you to allow your ego to take over your reactions at the 3D realm for any situation, including emergencies, including immediate, thoughtless situations, and all of that, anything where the ego should step in before the higher self, any agreements, let's dissolve, resolve, release, and clear all etheric binding agreements that require that the ego step in before the higher self without listening to the higher self, without listening to anything else, and that it must do that, and to get from Creator how it served you, what the lessons were, how it'll serve you to be without them, to thank all parties involved and open the doors to and from all parties to forgiveness and apology, to and from all parties involved. Would you like to download the knowledge, understanding, feelings of apology and forgiveness to and from all parties involved? Pull all related beliefs, including, in an emergency situation, my ego steps in and takes control. My ego must step in and take control. My ego controls my reactions in this 3D realm. And my ego can do so without consulting the higher self. All those beliefs, all the related anxieties, fears, regrets, rejections, resentments, anger, and guilt, pull all the energy memory of that from the cellular level. Pull the related self-limiting thoughts, words, and actions from the cellular level. Transform them to Creator's light, send them back to Creator, and close those receptors. Open new ones and saturate the cells and in between the cells with the highest vibration of Creator's unconditional love. And download the feelings of, for every situation, I allow my higher self to guide me. I can trust my higher self will guide me for what is highest and best. And for me, in the most positive, graceful, easy, joyful, harmonious, and balanced way. I can do so without trauma, drama, and illness. I can react to all situations on all realms without trauma, drama, and illness, and with grace and ease and balance, and harmony and joy from the higher self. Connections to all levels of my consciousness at all times, and to know what is highest and best for me at all times without ego intervening, without ego taking its place, without ego ignoring all the others and just reacting from negativity, and to know how to be free of that and to only react to things in a positive manner, and to know how to do that, to know how to react to all situations from love, from the higher self, from the bigger picture, and to know the feelings of that, to know you can trust that from Creator, and to get the teachings about that from Creator, and the feelings and knowledge and understanding of that, knowing that you are worthy, deserving, and able to, that it's possible, allowed, okay, and safe to, that you're ready, willing, and able to, and that you have that in your life right now. And then would you like to write it off as complete in the Akashic Records and heal, resolve, and clear all timelines in all directions to infinity with the violet and platinum flames? Whew! And to do that, take a deep breath, be open to receive, clear your mind, and say, yes, reactions. And that's it. Have a wonderful one. We'll talk to you next week. This is Angela. Today's a cup of tea.